Well, social media has become part of our everyday life, from viral videos to parody images. It has no shortage of entertainment. Well, let's look back at the year that was on social media and what hashtags broke the internet. We're now joined by SABC News digital media specialist Siyabonga Africa. Good morning to you and welcome.
Morning.
I don't even know where to begin from those hashtags and trending things, but what are some of those biggest trends of this year?
Well, definitely the Must Fall movement was one of the biggest ones, from Rhodes Must Fall to Fees Must Fall to ultimately Zuma Must Fall, which, came about in the last couple of weeks. It definitely was one of the biggest movements and hashtags on social media, and people kind of really gravitated towards it, and the fact that it also created on-the-ground response with students coming out en masse to the union buildings, to students actually making the Rhodes statue disappear at UCT, and people actually coming out also in full force to Parliament a couple of weeks ago to protest against the president. Definitely the Must Fall movement was the biggest one of the year.
Did you see a discrepancy between some of the highlights on Twitter versus Facebook? Because I've had some talk that the LSM on Facebook is different to the one on Twitter, and the interests are different. So the Must Fall movement, for example, would have been big on Twitter, but not so much on Facebook.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. It's hard to actually compare demographics on Facebook versus demographics on Twitter because we don't exactly have, the full breakdown. What we do know is that there are about 7 million active Twitter users in South Africa. Facebook, it's slightly higher. With Facebook, of course, we can see, the breakdown between male, female, age, and whatnot. But with Twitter, we can't. There's a really interesting adage that news breaks on Twitter and it lives on Facebook. So it could be that people are a lot more inclined to discuss and actually go into debate on Facebook, whereas on Twitter, it's more about what's breaking, what's happening now.
And do you find that it empowers ordinary citizens to actually have a voice and an opinion, and someone who wouldn't have a platform, perhaps as a news anchor or as an analyst, etc., can voice their opinion and actually garner quite a large following?
Definitely. With the rise of social media, now everybody can be a publisher. Everybody can actually have their voice out there. Before, news was something that was one to many. Now it's many to many. People can actually publish their own views and their opinions, whatever they may be, whether they're conservative, liberal, whether it is racist or whether it is PC. So yes, it is definitely empowering, and everyone has a voice now to actually, show their opinions to the world.
Is that a healthy way of disseminating information, though?
Well, it could harken back to, what democracy was back in the day, where everybody had a voice. And it's definitely healthy for people to engage in debate. I think, as a news organization ourselves, that's what we want. We want people to discuss, to debate, to actually be informed of what's going on, and to see that actually happening in a space where everyone has an opportunity to voice their opinion is definitely healthy.
But I'm thinking about how many people have just gone on and tweeted things that they haven't verified, information that they haven't checked, and caused a lot of heartache for some people, have had to apologize at some times as well. And that's where I was going with that question. But let's move on to this and ask whether or not the sentiments or the views that are shared on social media platforms, are they indicative of where we are as a country, or perhaps is it too small a pool to actually gauge where South Africa's psyche is?
You raise an interesting point. Is it too small of a pool? Like I said, there are about 7 million active Twitter users on Twitter that we know of, South African that is. In a country of 55 million people, that's about a 15% sample of the country. At the same time, we don't know, what the demographic is, so we don't know what the breakdown is between male and female. We don't even know what the socioeconomic breakdown is, though it is, by rule of thumb, it is that social media users tend to skew on the middle to higher LSMs. So, could we say that's representative of the country and people's views? Not really. Even when we use Twitter polls for our own stories in the digital news division, we tend to say that you need to take it with a pinch of salt. Yeah. This is just sentiments that we gauge from Twitter. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's scientific, but it is a good barometer of what opinions there are. People were talking about Rhodes Must Fall, and Rhodes did fall. Yeah. So of course where there's smoke there's fire, and
can't be ignored.
Yes.
So the figures can't be ignored. But let's stray away from the more serious things now and take a look at some of the comic relief that South Africa receives from social media platforms. We are, I think, one of those countries who are so resilient that we laugh to keep from crying, perhaps sometimes, and we make fun of serious situations just as a way to move on from it. What comes to mind is the hashtag Ask Musi. You know, when he was trying to engage robustly with the constituency in South Africa, the DA leader Musi Maimane started asking people, ask me whatever questions that you would like to know from me. And as quote Black Twitter, as people say, just went off on a tangent and ripped him to shreds and made so many jokes.
Yeah, definitely. Black Twitter is probably one of the funniest things to come out of Twitter itself. And the Ask Musi was definitely, an opportunity which, I could see it had good intentions, but it was taken advantage of by Black Twitter. And I think it was in jest, what people were saying. Us South Africans love to laugh at ourselves, and, I don't see anything wrong in that. We do get serious and we have to get serious, but when we like to have take out the laugh on something, we do. And Black Twitter is the great source of that. Ask Musi was a great example. Also, even in the fees must fall, and people started saying DSTV subscribers fall because it's so expensive, and a whole host of other things. Even with Zuma must fall, Black Twitter did come out as well, and they started adding their own memes and their own pictures, which were definitely comedic.
Those memes are a revolution in and of themselves. Those are pictures of other people in different situations, but their facial expressions so describe what you're going through, or what you would like to convey, and people put them up all the time. I mean, I put one up of Beyonce today, flossing or flexing or whatever it is, and I said, this is how I'm feeling right about now. So that's also become something that's a bit of a trend, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. People are using memes as a quick way to show their emotions, to show what their opinion is related to. So you have like the Beyonce one, you have Sean Bean in Game of Thrones, where it's winter is coming, and then people say, oh, New Year's Eve wishes are coming, etc., etc.
So another thing that I think is worth discussing now are the twelebs, because as we said, you have a platform now where those who are very opinionated and perhaps even funny, I'm thinking of your Kaya Dlangas, very humorous, but you get these people who have this persona on Twitter where you always every morning want to check what do they have to say. Who are some of the biggest twelebs, would you say?
Well, in terms of celebs, you have your Bonangs. People are still inclined to follow Trevor Noah as well. He's our local boy who's making it big in in the United States. And his account has grown exponentially ever since he became the Daily Show host. In fact, in the past month, it's grown by more than 80,000 followers. So he's close to 3 million followers on Twitter, and that has had a huge following from South Africans and as well as people from abroad. Locally, your Casper Nyoves, your singers and rappers and local actors are definitely Maps Mapanyana. Those guys are definitely rising up, and people love to follow what they do and what they say, and their personas also lend into what their entrepreneur pursuits are.
Yeah, so it's become a different division of what they do. They carry on their radio show, for example, if you speak of Bonang, then you can add on the questions or the comments thereafter. Casper Nyoves, if there's a new song, you can check lyrics or whatever it is. After that, so Mizi, for example, the hands up in the air, etc., those memes. So it's become a bit of an addition to what they do that lends itself towards increasing their popularity.
Definitely, and it's something they cannot ignore, because people, now they feel that they can connect with, these artists, whereas there used to be this barrier where you couldn't necessarily talk to an artist back before social media came through. You'd send a letter, you'd try to send a fax, and of course there's no guarantee that they would get that. But now that they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, you can comment on their Instagram pictures, you can tweet back at them whenever they tweet out something like, here's my new album, or they say good morning, you say good morning back, and the hope is that they'll respond back to you. Not that they always do, but once in a while they do, and they do engage,
and you live for that retweet.
Oh yeah,
or that favor, that heart symbol there that they give you when you click on it. But just as a word of caution, perhaps, we're all excited now. We're waiting for 2016. We're retweeting and liking things and writing things on our Facebook page or our Twitter account that perhaps we're not thinking about, prospective employers or what adults would say, etc. Any word of caution when you're about to send out that tweet?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not something you do in front of your employer, of course, it's not something you should be posting about, especially if you're a recent graduate. I think I'd be careful about getting tagged in pictures of, showing you drinking alcohol and partying and whatnot. So, just be careful of those kinds of things. As much as social media is liberating that you can express your opinion, it's also a bit of a prison because you need to ensure that what you say doesn't necessarily rub against, what's popular opinion of the day. So it's definitely, think before you tweet, think before you post, and definitely just keep an extra eye out there.
And I think also, for me, it's to have fun on it. It should be something that you use to relax, to enjoy yourself, and you're not stressed about, having to tweet it. You're missing out on the quality of life because you're just clicking away at this thing. And so stressed because no one is retweeting.
Oh yeah, and you shouldn't be stressed out because no one's retweeting you. You should be more focused on what your voice is and what your persona is. There is that downside that people do also get attached to how many likes and retweets and whatnot that they get. But at the end of the day, it's just in real life, who's the people that actually care about what you say, and maybe that's what you should be concerned about.
That's what you should focus on. Thank you so much, Siyabonga Africa, SABC News digital media specialist, just giving us the 411 on what's happening on social media. Quick ad break. We continue after this. Stay with us.